be there. I'll be gone like the river. I'll be gone like the river. And the song.
Now the Severn's no ordinary river. For a start, it's Britain's longest river at over 220 miles from source to sea. It begins life in Wales on Mount Plynlimmon, rapidly becoming a freestone stream, the Afon Clywedog, before it meets its first major man-made barrier, the mighty Clywedog Reservoir. This vast sheet of water, over 9 miles long, was dammed in 1967 to supply the West Midlands with 11 million gallons of drinking water. Building up stocks of water in the winter, the water is released during the summer to maintain river levels. For the most part it works okay, but the promise to locals that its construction would put an end to the flooding in the Severn Valley proved to be a hollow one. In recent years, the Severn has seen its worst flooding in living memory, and we'll see the effects of that later. Yet there's more to our home river than the millions of gallons of water that flow daily towards its estuary in the Bristol Channel. It's not surprising for a river of this size, drawing as it does from such a huge catchment of some 4,000 plus square miles, that several of its tributaries are recognised as fine angling rivers in their own right. In Chapter 2, in addition to fishing the Severn, you'll join me and the Duke on the Warwickshire Avon, the scene of so many of our best predator fishing trips over the years. We'll also walk the banks of one of Shropshire's finest streams, the River Ree, where wild brown trout can still be caught. Modern life's a rat race, and we all get caught up in it. Thankfully, there is a hidden world where the moment that you cross its threshold, shoulders drop and breathing gets easier. It's called the riverbank, and it's been my spiritual home since the day I first picked up a fishing rod at the age of 3. Like many anglers, I have a favourite or home river as we fishermen call it. You might have one too. You are in tune with it and bound to it for life. Such bonds are hard to break, and so it is for myself and fishing partner Mick Brown when it comes to our home river, the Severn. Though roach have been in decline on the Severn in recent years, there's nothing better or more skillful than trotting a stick float and putting together a bag of roach. Even better is the possibility of catching a fish weighing a pound or more on light tackle. Opportunities to fish for roach on the Severn are limited but highly prized. Being a relatively fast-paced river, a stick float fixed to the line top and bottom is a great way to control the bait and fish for roach. The way that the float is attached allows the angler to hold the float back and slow it down without it getting dragged under, and it's possible to cajole and tease fish from the swim. Roach fishing usually begins in autumn when the colder nights begin to draw in, and it can extend all the way through to March, river conditions allowing. It's a fact that in the winter the River Severn is in flood most of the time. Such conditions, while ideal for species such as barbel, are not the best for trotting afloat for roach, so those rare periods when the river is low are the ones to look out for. In the autumn, the traditional way to fish for roach is to use hemp seeds as a feed bait to attract fish into the swim, and yet it's small, fiddly and difficult to put on the hook, so we use a different hook bait just to make the job easier. Traditionally, this is a thing known as tares or pigeon corn, which is boiled and softened, but these days most people use 4 to 6 mil size pellets. In steadier pace swims like the one that I'm fishing here, the stick float's nowhere near as effective as it is in faster water. In this situation, if the roach are slow to respond, changing to a fixed ball reel and a waggler float will enable you to fish further out, and sometimes this is necessary either to catch the fish or just to keep them coming. Most of the time, however, I prefer the stick, fishing within 3 or 4 rod lengths of the bank. The key to catching roach on the stick are depth, speed and presentation. The best places to fish for roach in the colder months are invariably around the towns, where roach tend to shoal up. Some of my favourite days on the Severn have been fishing for roach in Bridgnorth. There's a special cosy feeling in wetting a line and catching fish while watching the rest of the world go by, so near and yet so far away. On this session I fished just above the town at Bridgnorth, a perfect area to trot afloat because of its relatively shallow depth and beautiful pace. Once again, roach and the occasional dace were the target, and I'll admit that I was excited to be fishing so close to home and in my local town. The day was bright and clear, not the best conditions, but I knew that by feeding hemp I could attract fish into the swim. This time I started off by using casters on the hook, and it didn't take long before I began to get regular bites. It's a really good healthy sign to see these fish back in these numbers. I was picking up small roach and dace regularly, a good sign, but I began to get the feeling that wading through the small fish to get the better sized roach might be a problem. But I needn't have worried. It's quite common when fishing for silverfish that the swim gets gate crashed by, yes, you've guessed it, pike. One of the problems with fishing for roach and dace is that when you get them going, it's not too long usually before the pike move in, and it's amazing how quickly they'll do that. And today's been no exception. Oh, there's a pike. He's got it. Pike's got it. He's got me roach. It's bit me off. After losing a couple of fish to pike, I was fortunate when my good friend Stu Allen came strolling along the bank, and thankfully Stu had the answer to my pike dilemma: a spinning rod and some lures. He's angry. There it is. Well, this is a regular thing on the Severn when you get the roach going, that you get pike coming in the swim, and it's always a good idea to have a nice friendly person pop along who's got some predator fishing gear, like you, Stuart, to remove the pike.
No scruples about just barging into your swim and
no, not at all. But I was getting pestered by this pike, bombing through, but the pike are there. Amazing. Yeah, let's put him in there. Okay, mate. We're going to let you go, but leave my roach alone. With the pike problem solved, it was time to get back to the roach fishing, although I knew that after the disturbance I would have to build up the swim again, and the afternoon was starting to slip away. Getting back into the rhythm of casting, fishing and feeding takes a while after a major disturbance, and to be honest, the roach and dace that came next were mainly small. Just as the sun's going down, I've started to pick up one or two more roach. This is a slightly better one, and I've changed tactics. I was fishing with casters on the hook. Now I've switched over to I've been feeding hemp, and I've got a small pellet banded. It probably looks like a big grain of hemp to a roach, but that's a nice fish. The fish are so used to pellets, and it isn't just the barbel and the chub. Of course, the roach are eating them as well, so you might as well exploit that behaviour. That's a beautiful fish. There was one exception though, when after a slight dip on the float, I struck anyway and found myself connected to a better fish. You know, these fish are so precious, and they're on the way back with a bang, which is fantastic. Believe me, that is very much a sight for sore eyes. Fantastic. Right, let's see if we can put this fish back. Absolutely beautiful roach. A little bit scarred, the big ones tend to be, but nonetheless, it's in good condition. And there you go. I fished until I could see the float no more, and the lights in the town came on, and the evening rush hour was in full swing. I've caught bigger roach, and I've had many days like it, but there's something special about fishing on your own turf, on your home river. Still, the chip shop beckoned, and besides, it was only just round the corner. One of the most fascinating people that I've met in the Severn Valley is Sylvia Sheldon. Sylvia's work with adders in the Wyre Forest came to my attention through a good friend, and I was immediately fascinated. I'll confess that until I met Sylvia and her partner Chris, I knew very little about adders and their lifestyle.
I got interested in adders in a roundabout way because I was doing general photography in the forest, photographing the flowers and the butterflies that landed on them, the deer and badgers, foxes, but I never photographed a reptile. So I began to photograph them and stick them into this very old book, which there are hundreds of adders recorded in here. And I thought that one day I would come across two adders with the same pattern of head marking, and I never have.
Sylvia's relationship with adders goes back a long time, and it prompted me to ask how long adders can live.
I have had one particular female adder I saw up until 3 years ago, and she would have been about 32 years of age.
Sylvia's love for the adder was becoming infectious, but I felt that I had to ask her about whether there's any truth in the myth that adders are dangerous.
Not dangerous. The adders are not dangerous at all. People do get bitten, but that is because they're trying to handle or pick the adder up, and the adder will bite in self-defence only. It will never attack.
Despite the fact that adders are shy creatures that shun human disturbance and contact, it became apparent to me that the adder is now facing enormous challenges.
My concern is that the adders are being pushed out of the areas which they were so familiar with, and they're finding it hard to find quieter places where they can't be found.
According to Sylvia, the decline of the adder in the Wyre Forest should be of concern to all wildlife enthusiasts, and the rate of decline has become dramatic in recent years.
We have found and logged about 87 sites over 30 odd years, but those sites have now declined to such a degree there are now only 4 or 5 sites where adders can be found.
It's long been one of my concerns that the pressure in natural areas in the Severn Valley has become more intense in recent times, and Sylvia described some of the activities that adversely affect the adders in the Wyre Forest.
Dog walkers especially, because they bring their dogs to the forest to actually let them run loose. And of course there's the mountain bike. We have a lot of mountain bikes in the forest. Horse riding, jogging is used by so many people. If I had a magic wand, I would really like to close off the areas, the few areas we've got left where there are adders, so that they would not have general public access.
I had to ask Sylvia to sum up her feelings about adders, and the emotion in her voice said it all.
Well, it's just been a pleasure. It's just been a pleasure to watch them.
I live in Shropshire, a county of rolling hills and glorious countryside. One of its lesser known treasures, the River Ree, runs through some of the most scenic and quintessential parts of the county. The Ree is more of a stream than a river, and it's home to one of Britain's fishing treasures, the wild brown trout. I was introduced to the river by my good friend Ed Scoops Brown, so named because of the size of his huge hands. Yet, despite his brawny stature, Ed is one of the most graceful wielders of a fly fishing rod that I've ever met. Not so long ago, on a fine early spring day, Ed snuck in a few hours on the Ree with the hope of catching one of its prized wild trout. While the fish aren't huge, the fishing is sublime, and a day spent exploring a wild natural stream soothes the soul and reminds you of what fishing is all about. Using a delicate 4-weight fly rod, Ed tempted a couple of early season trout from a delightful hidden world that is impervious to fishing for personal bests, and it inspired me to try to catch one myself.
Now, the threat to the wild habitat of the brown trout in Britain is pretty serious, like it is with many other wild creatures, and the solution that the fishing communities come up with is to actually rear trout, both American rainbow trout and also brown trout to fairly large sizes and then stock them into still waters and rivers. Of course it does provide some form of fishing challenge, but it's nothing like fishing for the wild fish. And these small streams and rivers are such an important part of the English countryside. They are the forgotten places, but if you seek them out, you can still find special rivers and streams where you can catch truly wild brown trout. Now what about the fly? Well, that's something that I've agonised over today, as all fly fishermen always do. But for the time being, I've opted to fish with a nymph. That's a fly subsurface, to imitate an insect that's living near to the riverbed among the stones, because I haven't seen many flies on the surface.
The early part of my visit was a delight, but the fishing was difficult. With spring not yet in full swing, I figured that the fish might be difficult to tempt, and so it proved. I worked my way along the river, fishing here and there, all the time trying to approach the water with minimal disturbance. When you're fishing for genuinely wild fish, what they lack in size, they often make up for in caution. With so little natural food around, I figured that my best chance of meeting a fish would come from a calm pocket of water I'd spotted earlier, but I waited until the warmest part of the day to wet a line in it. It was a good move.
Yes, it's a beautiful wild brown trout. Look at this. I hope he doesn't come off for all of that. He's still really lively, but look at that absolutely beautiful fish. The brown trout really is an absolutely magnificent fish, and you'll notice I'm not taking him far out of the water. That's because this is the best place for him. These fish need to be preserved because they are being threatened, or at least their habitat is. Just hold him for a second longer, just cradle him, because they're so precious, these beautiful fish. Look at that. And away he goes.
Over the years, the River Avon has been a favourite of mine in the Duke for predator fishing. It's a more stable river than the Severn, and its slower flow and tendency to flood less make it a great backup venue when the Severn is raging and misbehaving. To get us started, here's one from the archive that goes back over 8 years. Bringing us back to the present day, our obsession with lure fishing burns as brightly as ever. Nothing puts us off, not even the threat of one of the worst winter storms and cold snaps for decades. The storm that they called the Beast from the East was threatening, and poor Mick was suffering from a stinking cold. Did it put us off? Not on your Nelly.
Said that, I know you've done very well on this river in these cold conditions, casting quite big lures about. So, you know, let's not get fixed in one way of fishing. Let's try several different things, go through the repertoire and find something that works.
Another adventure, Sir Em.
Woohoo! Homemade sausage roll.
Shame you didn't stretch to 2, isn't it, really?
I could break it in half.
Oh, yeah. Well, winter survival rations, look at that. Wow. That'll keep me alive for another 10 seconds. Wow. I'll keep the boat ticking over while you have a cast.
Well, the weather forecasters had got it right. Within minutes of starting, the snow began to fall and we found ourselves fishing in a blizzard. Undeterred, we began our approach with soft plastic lures, fish deep and slow, a favourite tactic in cold weather. In freezing conditions, tactics matter, and so too do small details.
This style of fishing, as far as I can see, is all about sensitivity. You need to use a rod with a sensitive tip to amplify the bites. And the modern drop shotting rods are almost like little mini quiver tip rods. You want a low diameter braid, and this whiplash and fire line is very, very fine braid for its breaking strain. And the advantage of that is you can use a lighter weight to get down to the bottom.
Catching fish seemed highly unlikely in such foul conditions, but we've overcome slim odds in the past. And let's be honest, you've got to be in it to win it.
There we go, Mick. Oh, look at that. It's a Zander. Woo-hoo-hoo. Wow, what a start.
So, the first fish was a Zander. We wasted no time in bringing it aboard.
Whoa, that's a good start, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hey?
Wow.
A Z. In freezing cold conditions. So see where it is, that's it. There she comes. Well, you can see the rig there very quickly, folks. Really simple drop shot rig with a little weight at the bottom, and the lure is about, what, 2 feet above. Yeah, well done, mate. That's the result. Absolutely great start. Wonderful. Yeah. That's a cracker, isn't it? So he might be a little bit slow to make his way off, but I'm sure he'll go. Come on, matey. There he goes. This is a blizzard. Still, the fish are feeding my son, so, you know, it's got its compensations, hasn't it? Yeah. Not too bad, is it?
I mean, it's a lovely river to fish, isn't it?
Yeah. You look like Father Christmas.
The weather was changing all the time. 1 minute a blizzard, the next a bout of welcome sunshine to raise temperatures and spirits. Our optimism was rewarded when Mick pitched a crankbait and got a bite almost instantly. The Duke was in.
See, now that's cranking a plug.
Well, you know, I said this is one of my favourite crankbaits from the fens, just fishing down the edge. It didn't take me long down here, did it?
No, it didn't.
First time I've used it down here, actually.
Okay, Mick, here we go. Yeah.
Oh,
Well done, mate. Yeah, got it. Well done. Well done, mate.
right. That's come out all right.
Oh, yes.
Oh, look at that. I'm pleased with that.
And the snow stopped.
Yeah. Well, that was on one of my favourite plugs I used back home in the fens. I can't believe the snow we've just been fishing in.
Incredible.
And now
isn't
the
it?
sun's out.
And your cold's getting worse. You're losing your voice.
Yeah, I've got
You're up and down. No.
well, I've got a sore throat. My hands are freezing, but God, I'm absolutely freezing cold. Oh, but I'm happy.
Well, if you took a look at us now, you'd think that we were in the Riviera. The sunshine's glorious and everything feels great. But 10 minutes ago, we had a blizzard, so you just can't work it out. I think the morning's gone really well. We've had a couple of fish. Frankly, we didn't expect to catch because it was so cold and the easterly wind, but we did. And now, really, we've got the best couple of hours coming, that late afternoon couple of hours, haven't we? So it's not over till the fat lady sings. Might get stuck.
Well, we've just tried a new spot, and Matt, the lucky devil, had a bite straight away.
It's a little pike.
And it's the littlest pike I've ever seen. In fact, it's not much bigger than the lure.
It's breastfeeding on the lure.
Yeah. Are we going to net it or?
Yeah, go on.
Okay. Oh, we've got it. We've got it.
Thank you. Well, that's not the biggest pike I've ever caught.
Oh, they're all lovely.
And he's got a face that only a mother could love, but he's my pike on a freezing cold day and I'm very happy with him.
Yeah.
Beautiful little fish, actually. Yeah. Super fish.
We're having a good day, mate.
Well, considering the conditions, I was right pleased with it.
Brilliant.
It had been a great day already, especially considering the conditions, but there was more to come. The snow came and went and it remained freezing, but I went on a bit of a run.
Well, as you can see, the light's starting to go a little bit now. It's been a quiet couple of hours. We've fished our way around with not much to show for it, and finally, a bite. Guess what I've got?
I'm going to have an asthma attack. Back it in.
I'm not actually going to say much about that.